welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope your day is going great. If you love heartfelt stories of transformation, family, and second chances, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will move you deeply. From the quiet back roads of Dixon, Kentucky, a story of perseverance, heartbreak, and rebirth continues to unfold. Amy Slaton, once known as the bubbly, soft-spoken sister on TLC's 1000 lb Sisters, is stepping into a completely new chapter of her life. The same woman who once struggled to walk across her own living room now stands taller, lighter, and more radiant than ever before. And it's not just her body that's changed. Her entire spirit has been reborn. When viewers first met Amy, she was in her early 30s, weighing over 400 pounds. Life back then felt heavy in more ways than one. She and her sister Tammy shared not only a home, but also a burden. Generations of unhealthy habits, emotional trauma, and the crushing pressure of being defined by their size. Food had become both their comfort and their curse. Nights spent laughing over takeout were followed by mornings filled with shame and exhaustion. Still, somewhere deep inside, Amy carried a quiet hope, a spark that told her life could be more than just surviving day to day. That spark grew brighter when she decided to take control. At first, her weight loss journey felt impossible. She'd tried before, diets, pills, promises to herself, but this time she wasn't doing it just for her. She wanted a family. She wanted to be a mother who could run after her kids in the yard, not just watch from the porch. That dream became her motivation. Her path wasn't easy. The surgery that changed her life also forced her to confront everything she'd been avoiding. The emotional hunger that food had been masking, the dependence on others, and the fear that she might fail. But she didn't. Bit by bit, Amy started shedding not just pounds, but the old version of herself. The one who doubted, who apologized for taking up space, who thought happiness wasn't meant for her. And as she began to blossom, so did her sister Tammy, though her road was longer and far more treacherous. Tammy's weight had climbed past 600 pounds. Moving was difficult, breathing was painful, and hope was slipping through her fingers. But Amy never gave up on her. No matter how hard things got, no matter how many fights or tears, she kept pushing her sister to keep going. In many ways, Amy became Tammy's anchor, her reminder that transformation was still possible. The day Amy underwent bariatric surgery was a turning point. She woke up sore, terrified, and unsure of what came next. But beneath it all, there was something new: belief. From that day on, her reflection started to change, not just in the mirror, but in her eyes. The exhaustion faded. The light returned. Soon after, Amy's dream came true. She became a mother. The first time she held her son Gage, she whispered a promise, that she'd be the kind of mother who never stopped fighting to be better. And true to that promise, she didn't. A few years later came her second baby boy, Glenn, and though her body struggled to recover, her heart had never been fuller, but like every chapter in Amy's life, joy didn't come without pain. Her marriage to Michael, the man she once believed she'd grow old with, began to unravel. The laughter they once shared gave way to silence, to distance. Amy tried to hold it together for the kids, but deep down she knew, love can't survive when one person stops showing up. Filing for divorce was one of the hardest decisions she ever made. But she did it, not out of anger, but out of love, for herself and for her boys. After the separation, Amy began focusing on what truly mattered: healing. She started putting herself first for the first time in years. Slowly, her world began to brighten again. She reconnected with Tammy, and for the first time in a long time, the sisters weren't arguing or blaming each other. They were just two women, both scarred and strong, finding their way back to peace. Tammy's transformation, too, was nothing short of miraculous. The sister who once needed a wheelchair and constant care was now walking, laughing, and living again. Over 500 pounds gone, but more importantly, the weight of despair had finally lifted. Amy couldn't stop smiling whenever she looked at her. They'd come so far, together and apart, through heartbreak and healing. One afternoon, under the soft Kentucky sun, Tammy and Amy shared one of the most emotional moments of their lives, the day Tammy finally sat in the front seat of a car for the first time in years. For so long, she'd been confined to the back, riding behind tinted glass, separated from the world. But that day, she was free. Amy pulled up in her bright blue SUV, honking playfully. "Hey, Tammy, it's your day. You ready to take shotgun?" Tammy hesitated, gripping her walker. What if I don't fit, Amy? What if I get stuck again? Amy smiled softly. You won't. You've worked too hard for that. You've got this. Their brother Chris arrived, phone in hand, ready to film. Come on, sis! TLC's gonna love this moment. So will you. With the cameras rolling and the sun shining, Tammy shuffled forward, each step slow but determined. The gravel crunched under her feet. Sweat glistened on her forehead, but her eyes never lost focus. Amy pulled the seat back, opened the door wide, and waited. Then, inch by inch, Tammy leaned forward and lowered herself into the seat. Silence. A deep breath. Then, click. The seatbelt latched. Tears filled Amy's eyes as Tammy broke into a trembling smile. Oh my God, she whispered. I did it. I'm in the front seat, Amy clapped, laughing through her tears. You did it, sis. You're not just sitting in a car. You're taking back your life. Chris grinned from the driver's seat. Look at you, Tammy Lynn. Next stop, you're driving yourself. As the SUV pulled away, the Kentucky sky stretched out before them. Blue, wide, endless. For years, Tammy had only seen the world through a window. Now, she was part of it again. Later, during her confessional, Tammy's voice trembled with emotion. I never thought this day would come. For so long, I felt trapped, not just by my weight, but by my own fears. This front seat, it's not just a seat. It's freedom. The sisters laughed and cried that day, their joy echoing through the car. Amy joked that next time, they'd hit the drive-thru with Tammy in the front ordering like a boss. And for the first time in years, their laughter wasn't hiding pain. It was pure, unfiltered joy. But life, as it always does, shifted again. In the weeks that followed, fans noticed Tammy had gone quiet on social media. No more late-night TikToks, no selfies with her boyfriend Philip, no upbeat posts. Something had changed. Behind closed doors, Tammy's relationship had begun to crumble. At first, she believed she'd found someone who saw her heart, not her weight. Philip, known online as the BBW King, had once promised her unconditional love. He made her laugh, cooked her favorite meals, and claimed he'd support her no matter what. But slowly, his words became chains. He began to discourage her from losing more weight, saying, "You don't need to change, baby. I love you just the way you are." It sounded sweet, until Tammy realized he didn't want her to grow. He loved the version of her that needed him. Amy noticed it too. One evening, she sat beside Tammy as her sister scrolled through old texts. "Sis," Amy said gently, "love isn't supposed to hold you back. If someone can't grow with you, they're not your person." At first, Tammy brushed it off. But deep down, she knew Amy was right. And soon, the truth came crashing in. Philip began ignoring her calls, replying coldly, distancing himself. When she finally confronted him, he said the words that broke her heart. "You're changing too fast, Tammy. I think we need a break." Her voice barely left her throat. A break? You mean a breakup? That was it? The silence that followed felt heavier than any weight she'd ever carried. The next morning, Amy found her sister sitting quietly on the porch, eyes swollen from crying. Tammy looked at her and whispered, "You were right. He didn't love me. He loved who I used to be." Amy hugged her tight, and for a moment they just stayed like that. Two sisters, no cameras, no show, just raw emotion. Tammy let go of Philip that day, and with that release, something inside her unlocked. Over the following weeks, she threw herself into recovery. Therapy sessions, daily walks, journaling. She started to heal. For the first time in years, Tammy was living for herself. When TLC filmed her next confessional, her voice was steadier. "I used to think love meant holding on no matter what," she said. "But real love lets you grow." Her fans flooded her Facebook with messages of support. The woman who once hid behind filters and fear was now showing up as her truest self, raw, radiant, real. Meanwhile, Amy was entering her own transformation, not just physically, but mentally. After giving birth to her second child, she realized she'd lost touch with herself. Between diapers, tantrums, and endless nights, she'd forgotten the woman she wanted to be. Then one day, while scrolling through Facebook, she came across a post for a local fitness class for moms. The ad showed women of all shapes laughing, lifting weights, and bonding with their babies. Something inside her clicked. "That's it," she whispered. "That's what I need." That next Monday morning, Amy packed her gym bag, something she hadn't done in years. She looked at herself in the mirror before leaving, adjusting her loose blue hoodie, her hair tied in a quick ponytail. There were dark circles under her eyes, reminders of late-night feedings and early mornings, but behind them was a spark. The same spark that had pushed her to get weight loss surgery years ago. The sound of her boy's laughter filled the room as she picked up her keys. Gage clung to her leg playfully. "Mommy, go bye-bye?" She smiled, crouching to meet his eyes. "Just for a little bit, baby. Mommy's going to make herself strong so I can keep up with you." He giggled and hugged her tight. That hug, small arms wrapped around her, warm and innocent, became her motivation all over again. She kissed both boys on their heads, whispered, "I love you," and walked out into the cool morning air. When she arrived at the class, she hesitated at the door. Music thumped from inside, upbeat, full of energy. She looked through the small window and saw women lifting small weights, some laughing between sets, others encouraging each other. For a moment, she felt that familiar sting of doubt. What if I don't fit in? What if they judge me? But then she remembered the promise she'd made to herself after her surgery. Never let fear be louder than your purpose. So she took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped inside. The instructor, a kind woman named Marcy, smiled warmly. "Hey there. You must be Amy. We're so glad you came." Amy nodded nervously. "It's been a while since I did anything like this." Marcy chuckled softly. "You're already doing it. You showed up. That's the hardest part." By the end of that first session, Amy was drenched in sweat. Her muscles ached, her face flushed, but her heart felt alive. She wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. She was just doing it for herself. After class, Marcy approached her again. "You did great today. You coming back Wednesday?" Amy hesitated only a second before smiling. "Yeah, I think I will." And she did. Week after week, Amy returned. Some days she felt strong, other days she felt like collapsing halfway through. But each time she showed up, she reminded herself of who she was becoming. Slowly, the weight that divorce and doubt had left behind started to lift. She started smiling more, laughing more. Even her boys noticed. One afternoon, while she was cleaning up toys, Gage ran to her, giggling. "Mommy, you fast now!" She laughed, pretending to flex her arm. "That's right, baby. Mommy's a superhero now." But what truly made her transformation powerful wasn't just the physical part. It was the emotional one. Amy started reconnecting with friends, posting small moments online again, and opening up to her fans. She shared her struggles with honesty, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the loneliness of being a single mom. Her followers flooded her with love and support. "You inspire me," one wrote. "If you can get back up, so can I." Another said, "You've shown us that strength isn't about size, it's about heart." That kind of encouragement reignited something inside her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. Meanwhile, Tammy's journey was also evolving in quiet, powerful ways. After her breakup with Philip, she found herself rediscovering simple joys she'd forgotten. Things like sitting outside at sunset, listening to the wind, or cooking a meal that nourished her instead of numbing her. Her rehab counselor once told her, "Healing doesn't always happen in big moments. Sometimes it's in the small ones, the way you breathe, the way you forgive yourself." Tammy took that to heart. She began journaling every morning, short, raw entries about her thoughts, fears, and victories. One entry read, "I used to think the world hated me, but now I think I was the one hating myself. Maybe if I can forgive the girl I was, I can start loving the woman I'm becoming." It was a slow process, but one that showed through every day. Fans noticed how different she looked, not just physically, but emotionally. Her eyes were brighter, her posture stronger, her smile more real, and for the first time ever, Amy and Tammy were truly growing together, instead of apart. They started spending more weekends together, family cookouts, road trips, afternoons just sitting on the porch reminiscing. The bond that fame and frustration had once fractured was healing. One summer evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Amy and Tammy sat outside watching their kids play. Tammy looked over and said quietly, "You know, sis, I used to be jealous of you. You got your surgery first. You had your kids. You got your happy ending." Amy looked at her with soft eyes. "Tammy, I never had a happy ending. I had hard beginnings. And I just kept going." Tammy nodded, tears forming. "I see that now. I guess we both did." For a long time, they just sat there. two sisters who had walked through hell and somehow found their way back to peace. But life, as it often does, had another test waiting. A few weeks later, while filming one of their segments for TLC, Amy got a call that made her heart drop. It was from their brother, Chris. His voice was shaky. "Amy, it's Tammy. She's in the hospital again." Amy's world froze. "What? Why? What happened?" "They said it's her lungs. Something with her oxygen levels. They've got her on support." Amy didn't even hang up properly. She just grabbed her keys, told her babysitter to watch the kids, and ran out the door. By the time she reached the hospital, the familiar smell of antiseptic and humming machines brought back a flood of memories, all the past scares, all the close calls. She rushed into the room, her eyes darting to the bed. There was Tammy, pale but breathing, tubes and wires surrounding her. Amy felt her knees buckle as she sat beside her, grabbing her hand. "You scared the life out of me, sis," she whispered. Tammy's eyelids fluttered open weakly. "I'm okay. I just pushed too hard." Amy shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You don't get to say that. You've come too far to give up now." Tammy smiled faintly. "I'm not giving up. I'm just resting." The doctors explained it was a respiratory infection. Serious, but treatable. Still, for Amy, those days felt endless. She barely slept, sitting by her sister's bedside, replaying every laugh, every memory, every moment they'd fought and forgiven each other. When Tammy finally opened her eyes fully, color back in her cheeks, Amy let out a shaky breath of relief. "You really scared me this time," Amy said softly. Tammy smiled weakly. "Guess I just wanted to remind you how much you love me." Amy laughed through her tears. "You don't need a hospital for that, dummy." They both giggled, a sound that cut through the tension like sunlight after a storm. When Tammy was finally discharged, Amy drove her home. On the way, the sisters rode in silence, the hum of the road beneath them. Tammy turned her head toward the window, watching the trees blur by. "You know," she said, "I think this was life's way of slowing me down. Reminding me to breathe," Amy nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe it's life reminding us we don't get forever. So we gotta make every second count." The car grew quiet again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Later that night, when Amy tucked her boys into bed, she sat for a while in the dark living room, thinking. About how fragile everything was, about how much had changed, and how somehow, despite all the pain, love kept finding its way back. She picked up her phone, opened her camera, and recorded a short message for her followers. "Hey, y'all. It's Amy. Just wanted to say, don't take your people for granted. Life's too short to hold grudges. If you love someone, tell them. Every day. Because one day you might wake up and wish you had." That video went viral overnight. Thousands of comments poured in. People shared their own stories of family, forgiveness, and loss. And through that wave of love, Amy realized something powerful. Her story, their story, had become a mirror for others to see their own healing. The next day, she visited Tammy again. This time, instead of tears, they brought laughter. Amy brought flowers, Tammy brought sarcasm, and together they filled the room with joy. "Guess you're stuck with me for a long time, huh?" Tammy teased. Amy grinned. "Forever, sis. Whether you like it or not." A few weeks later, life slowly started returning to normal, or at least the new version of normal Amy and Tammy had grown used to. The cameras followed them again, documenting the quiet resilience that now defined their lives more than any drama ever had. Amy was back home, folding laundry while her boys played in the living room. The hum of the washing machine mixed with the sound of laughter, creating a kind of everyday music she'd once taken for granted. She paused for a moment, holding one of Gage's shirts close, thinking about how close she'd come to losing her sister again. When her phone buzzed, she half expected it to be another emergency. But this time, it was a text from Tammy. "Hey, come over. I made dinner." "And no, it ain't junk food, promise," Amy chuckled and texted back. "If it's that tofu stuff again, I'm calling 911 in advance. Just come." "Drama queen?" Tammy replied with a laughing emoji. That evening, Amy loaded the kids into the car and drove over. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long orange streaks across the sky. It reminded her of summer nights they used to spend on their grandmother's porch, back when life was simpler. Before the cameras, before the surgeries, before fame turned their struggles into storylines. When she arrived, Tammy was waiting outside, leaning against the porch railing. She looked stronger than she had in months, not just physically, but in spirit. Her hair was brushed, her eyes clearer, and her smile didn't look forced anymore. "Look at you," Amy said with a grin, cooking and standing at the same time. "That's progress," Tammy rolled her eyes playfully. "I told you, I'm not the old Tammy anymore. You'll see." Inside, the kitchen smelled amazing. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and a touch of garlic in the air. Amy blinked in surprise. "You really cooked this?" Tammy laughed. "With a little help from YouTube. Don't look at me like I just climbed Everest." YouTube. "Don't look at me like I just climbed Everest." They sat down to eat, the boys giggling between them, the sound of forks tapping plates filling the silence. It was simple, wholesome, and real. No cameras, no drama, just family. After dinner, while the kids played in the next room, the sisters sat on the couch sipping sweet tea. For a long time, neither said a word. They didn't need to. Finally, Tammy broke the silence. "You ever think about how far we've come? Like, from those days when I could barely move to now? Sitting here cooking, living?" Amy nodded slowly. "All the time. Sometimes I look back at old clips from season 1 and I don't even recognize us." Tammy smiled softly. "I think about that too. I used to hate seeing myself like that, but now I see it as proof. Proof that people can change." Amy looked over at her sister, truly looked, and realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. Tammy was living. That night, before leaving, Amy hugged her tight. "I'm proud of you, sis." "I really am," Tammy squeezed her back. "You should be proud of yourself, too. You've been holding it all together, even when it looked like it was falling apart." Amy laughed quietly. "I guess we both had to break before we could rebuild." Weeks turned into months. The cameras kept rolling, but something about the footage felt different now. Instead of chaos, there was growth. Instead of pain, there was reflection. Viewers began noticing the change. Too, comments online shifted from criticism to admiration. "This is the Tammy we've been rooting for since day one." Amy's glow up isn't just physical, it's emotional. You can feel the peace in their home now. For once, the world wasn't laughing at them. It was cheering for them. But with the light came new challenges. The renewed fame brought new pressures. TLC producers wanted bigger storylines, more drama. They wanted conflict, tears, tension, the kind that pulled in millions of views. One day, during a planning call, a producer suggested something that made Amy's stomach twist. "We think it'd be powerful if you and Tammy revisited the rehab facility together. Maybe have a tough conversation on camera about the past." Amy frowned. "You mean like bringing up all the pain again?" "Exactly," the producer said. "It'll show growth, but it needs to feel raw." Amy didn't answer right away. She just sat there, torn. On one hand, she understood the business. She knew their lives were entertainment now. But on the other hand, she also knew what those memories did to her sister. Tammy wasn't just a storyline. She was human. Later that night, Amy called Tammy. "They want us to go back to the rehab center for filming. You okay with that?" There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Tammy sighed. "You know what, maybe it's time. Maybe I need to see it again, to remember where I started." Amy hesitated. "You sure? You don't have to do this for TV." "I'm not doing it for TV," Tammy replied. "I'm doing it for me." So they went. The drive there was quiet, both of them lost in thought. When they arrived, the sight of the old building hit Tammy like a wave. The gray walls, the narrow hallways, the smell of disinfectant. It was all exactly the same. She stopped in the doorway of her old room, her hand trembling slightly. Amy stood beside her, not saying anything, just offering silent support. "I remember lying in that bed thinking I'd never leave," Tammy whispered. "Every night I prayed for one more chance. And now, here I am," Amy nodded, eyes misting. "You did it, sis. You really did." For the cameras, it was a moment of closure. But for Tammy, it was deeper, and it was a reckoning. She wasn't the broken woman who came here to survive anymore. She was someone who'd fought her demons and was learning to live free from them. As they left, Tammy turned to the crew and said something no one expected. "You know, y'all showed my worst moments on national TV, and for a long time, I hated you for it. But now I get it. Maybe people needed to see that side because it made them believe that change is possible." That statement alone became the heart of the episode. Not drama, but redemption. When it aired, the response was overwhelming. Fans flooded social media with messages like, "That episode made me cry." "Tammy's strength is unreal." This is what reality TV should be. Amy sat with Tammy the night it aired, scrolling through comments, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. Guess we're inspiring people now, Amy said with a grin. Tammy chuckled. Who'd have thought? Us, the messiest sisters on TV. But the truth was, that's what made them real. That's what made viewers connect with them. They weren't perfect, and they never pretended to be. Still, fame has a way of testing peace. As the season wrapped up, rumors started swirling again about contracts, renewals, and even whether one of the sisters might be leaving the show. TMZ headlines popped up. Fan pages speculated. Some claimed Amy was done with filming, wanting to focus on her kids. Others said Tammy was negotiating for her own spin-off. Amy tried to ignore it all, but it was hard. One afternoon, she sat outside scrolling through comments until she sighed heavily. Tammy joined her, carrying 2 lemonades. Girl, put the phone down before you give yourself a headache, Tammy said. Amy smirked. You see what they're saying? Apparently, we hate each other again. Tammy rolled her eyes. Let 'em talk. They've been writing fake stories about us since season 1. The truth don't need defending. Amy nodded slowly. You're right. I just hate seeing lies spread like that. Tammy leaned back in her chair. Then live your truth louder than they can lie. Amy smiled. That was something their late grandma used to say. Hearing it again felt like coming home. The next morning, Amy posted a video. Sitting on her porch, no makeup, no script, just honesty. Hey y'all, just wanted to clear some stuff up. My sister and I ain't fighting. We're just living. Real life ain't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just quiet, and that's okay. Don't believe everything you see online. Believe what you see in our hearts. The video went viral within hours. Fans called it her realest moment yet. Tammy commented under the post, facts. My sister tells it like it is. Love you, Amy, and Amy replied, love you more, troublemaker. It was simple. But it said everything. That night, as they FaceTimed before bed, Amy told Tammy, you know, I think we finally found our peace, sis. Tammy smiled sleepily. Yeah, took us a while, but we got there, Amy grinned. And this time, we ain't letting it go. Weeks passed quietly in Dixon, Kentucky. For the first time in what felt like years, there were no production vans outside the house, no microphones taped to shirts, no cameras following every laugh or sigh. Amy and Tammy were living off-screen, and strangely, it felt like learning how to breathe again. Every morning, Amy would wake before the boys, brew her coffee, and sit by the window as the sun rose over the trees. The house was still, the only sound the rhythmic ticking of the old clock on the wall. It was during those moments that she realized how far she had come, not just in weight, but in peace. She had found something better than fame or attention: contentment. One morning, her phone buzzed. It was an email from TLC's executive producer, inviting both sisters to discuss a special future project. Amy stared at the screen for a while, her heart beating faster. She had promised herself to step back from the chaos, but she also knew that the show had given them everything. Their platform, their message, their community. She called Tammy. Hey sis, you sitting down? I'm always sitting down, Tammy joked, her voice groggy. Amy laughed. TLC wants us back. They're talking about a reunion special. Something called 1000 LB Sisters, the next chapter. Tammy went quiet for a moment. The next chapter, huh? Guess they finally ran out of the old drama. Yeah, maybe it's time to show them the real us, Amy said softly. Tammy exhaled. You think it's worth doing again? Amy looked out the window at the sunlight spilling across her yard. If it means showing people hope instead of pain, then yeah. I think it's worth it. When filming began a month later, things felt different. The energy was calmer, the sisters more grounded. The crew seemed to sense it too. There was laughter behind the cameras now, not tension. The first scene took place in Tammy's kitchen. She was preparing breakfast, something she'd rarely done before losing weight. The smell of scrambled eggs and toast filled the air. Can you believe this, y'all? Tammy said to the cameras, flipping eggs with a grin. Me cooking in my own kitchen, standing up on my own 2 feet. If you told me this 2 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face and probably asked for another plate of pancakes. Amy entered the frame, holding a cup of coffee. Yeah, and now look at you, Miss Independent, Tammy smirked. Don't get used to it. You're still doing the dishes. Everyone burst into laughter. That day's shoot captured something rare in reality TV: authentic joy. There was no script, no forced drama, just two sisters rediscovering their bond. Fans watching months later would say it was the most genuine episode they'd ever seen. But beyond the laughter and smiles, both women knew life still had its challenges. Amy was balancing motherhood and self-care. Tammy was learning how to live in a body that finally matched her spirit. Late one night, after everyone had gone to bed, Amy found herself scrolling through old photos again. Pictures from before the surgeries, before the fame. In one photo, she and Tammy sat on their front porch, laughing uncontrollably at something ridiculous. They looked so different, heavier, yes, but there was a spark in their eyes, untouched by judgment or expectation. She texted the photo to Tammy. "Look at us. We thought we were so grown," Tammy replied almost instantly. "So grown," Tammy replied almost instantly. "We were, just not the kind we thought we'd be." Amy smiled, tears welling up. The simplicity of that truth hit deep. The next day, filming continued outside. It was early spring, the kind of Kentucky morning that smelled like rain and wildflowers. The sisters were sitting in lawn chairs talking about their goals for the year. Tammy looked thoughtful. "You know what I want to do? I want to travel more. I want to go places that scare me a little." Amy raised a brow. "Scare you? Like haunted houses or airplanes?" "Airplanes," Tammy laughed. "Haunted houses are fine. But I want to see more of the world before I'm too old to enjoy it." Amy nodded slowly. "Then we'll make it happen. Maybe Paris next?" "Girl, I can barely fit in a car last year. You want me on a 10-hour flight?" Tammy said, laughing, but in her eyes, Amy could see it wasn't just a joke. Tammy meant it. She wanted to live. Later that afternoon, their brother Chris joined them, bringing his usual humor. "Y'all talking about traveling? You better start saving now. Airplane snacks are expensive," Amy giggled. "I'll just pack my own." "You think I'm paying $8 for peanuts?" Chris grinned. "Yeah, that's the Amy I know. Budgeting snacks since 1998. The three of them sat there until sunset, the laughter echoing across the yard. After the crew wrapped for the day, Amy walked Tammy back inside. Tammy paused at the doorway, looking out over the horizon. "You think people really change, Amy?" Amy turned to her. "Yeah, I do. But I think what really happens is we become more of who we were meant to be." Tammy nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "Maybe for the first time, I actually like who I'm becoming." The months that followed were a mix of work, healing, and reflection. TLC began editing the new season, focusing more on resilience and less on shock value. For once, they wanted to show transformation, not tragedy. Meanwhile, Amy's sons grew fast, their laughter filling every corner of her home. She documented everything: first steps, first words, messy breakfasts. Sometimes Tammy would visit and spoil them with candy. Despite Amy's protests. "You're supposed to be the responsible aunt," Amy scolded one afternoon as she caught Tammy handing Gage a lollipop. Tammy shrugged. "Hey, I'm just building memories. You can handle the cavities." Amy laughed so hard she couldn't stay mad. As summer approached, TLC announced the new season premiere date. The trailer dropped on YouTube and within hours went viral. Clips showed Tammy dancing at a family barbecue, Amy laughing with her kids, and both sisters walking side by side down a quiet country road. The final voiceover said, "They've lost the weight, but gained everything that truly matters." The comment section exploded. "This is the redemption arc we needed." Proud of them both. Tammy and Amy are proof that change starts with love. Amy and Tammy sat together the night it premiered, watching on a big screen. When the trailer ended, there was a long silence. Amy turned to her sister. "We really did it, didn't we?" Tammy nodded, her voice soft. "We're not done yet, but yeah, we did." A few days later, TLC invited them to Los Angeles for a press event. It was their first time being flown out as honored guests instead of just reality stars. Amy fretted over what to wear, while Tammy insisted on trying on sunglasses at every store they visited. "I'm telling you, Amy, these make me look like a celebrity," she said, striking a pose in front of the mirror. "You are a celebrity," Amy said. "You just don't act like one," Tammy smiled. "Good. I'd rather act like myself." At the press event, the sisters were greeted with applause. Journalists asked them about their journey, their transformation, their message. Tammy leaned toward the microphone and said something that silenced the room. "I think everyone watches us because we remind them it's okay to struggle. It's okay to fall apart. What matters is that you keep fighting your way back." Amy placed a hand on her sister's shoulder, proud tears in her eyes. Afterward, backstage, a producer approached them quietly. You know, you two have no idea how many lives you've changed just by being honest. Amy smiled humbly. We were just being ourselves. I think that's all anyone can really do. When they returned to Kentucky, something felt lighter. The noise of fame didn't bother them as much anymore. They'd found peace, not in perfection, but in acceptance. One night, as they sat on the porch with fireflies glowing in the distance, Tammy said softly, "You ever think about what comes next, Amy?" Amy sipped her sweet tea. I don't know. Maybe it's not about what comes next. Maybe it's about being happy right where we are. Tammy smiled, her eyes glistening under the porch light. Yeah, for the first time I think I am. The crickets chirped. The air smelled like summer rain. And for once, there was no script, no chaos, just two sisters who had walked through fire and come out glowing. They didn't need a camera to prove it. The truth was written all over their faces. The summer air was thick and warm as the days stretched longer in Dixon. The sun dipped slower behind the trees now, painting the world in gold before it faded to deep blue. Amy sat outside with her boys, watching them chase bubbles across the lawn. Gage laughed uncontrollably every time one popped on his nose. Glenn, still toddling, stumbled after him with pure determination. From the porch, Tammy watched them play, her face soft with quiet pride. You know, she said, those two are going to grow up knowing what strength looks like. Amy glanced over. You talking about me or you? Tammy grinned. Both of us, Amy smiled, brushing her hair back as the breeze caught it. You think about how far we've come, Tam? I mean, really think about it? A few years ago, we were just sitting inside every day, trying to figure out how to breathe, how to move, how to live. Now look at us. Tammy leaned back in her chair, her voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes I don't even recognize that old version of me. I still remember what it felt like to be trapped in my own body, to hate mirrors, to hate mornings, to hate myself. Amy reached over and squeezed her hand. You made it through that. You found your way out. Tammy nodded slowly. Yeah, but I didn't do it alone. You never gave up on me. There was a long silence. The cicadas hummed in the trees. A single car passed on the distant road. Amy looked out at her kids again. I think that's what family's supposed to do. Stick around even when it's hard. Tammy swallowed, her eyes glassy. You always did. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, they sat together in the living room, the quiet broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Amy pulled out a photo album, a thick one, corners worn from years of handling. She flipped it open to the first page. There they were, two teenage girls sitting on the porch steps, laughing with ice cream cones melting in their hands. Amy smiled. Remember that summer? The year Mom tried to make us do yard work and we kept hiding behind the shed? Tammy burst out laughing. Yeah, and she caught us eating popsicles in the shade while she was mowing. Amy laughed too, the sound echoing through the house. For a moment, it felt like they were kids again. Before the cameras, before the surgeries, before the chaos of fame. Then Amy turned the page. There were photos from the first season of 1000 LB Sisters, Amy in her hospital bed, Tammy in her wheelchair, the two of them holding hands before surgery. Tammy stared at the pictures, her laughter fading into quiet reflection. I look at her and I want to hug her. She didn't know she'd make it this far. She didn't know she'd be able to walk again, laugh again, live again. Amy nodded, her voice soft. She needed to go through it. We both did. Tammy closed the album gently. You ever wonder if the world will forget about us once the cameras stop rolling? Amy thought for a moment. Maybe, but honestly, I don't mind if they do. I don't want to be remembered for the show. I want to be remembered for surviving. Tammy smiled faintly. Then we're already legends. The sisters sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Tammy spoke again. You know what's crazy? All my life, I thought the biggest thing I could do was lose weight. But now I see it wasn't about losing something, it was about finding myself. Amy's eyes welled with tears. You did, Tam. You really did. A week later, TLC aired the first full episode of the new season. The opening montage showed the sisters laughing, playing with the kids, cooking dinner together. But the part that broke everyone's hearts came near the end, a scene of Tammy visiting their mother's grave. She knelt down, placed a bouquet of daisies, and whispered softly, We made it. Mama, we're okay now. Amy stood behind her, tears streaming quietly as the camera panned out. When the episode aired, social media exploded. Viewers around the world posted messages of love and hope. I've never cried this hard over a reality show. Tammy and Amy are proof that healing is possible. This isn't a show anymore. It's a testament to the human spirit. The next morning, Amy woke to hundreds of messages. Fans, friends, strangers. She smiled at the outpouring of love, but stayed humble. We just told the truth, she said quietly to herself. That's all. As fall approached, life found a rhythm again. No camera crews, no bright lights, just daily life. Amy started a small garden in her backyard, teaching her boys how to plant tomatoes and sunflowers. Tammy joined her on weekends, wearing a big straw hat and pretending to be an expert gardener, even though she had no idea what she was doing. You gotta talk to them, Tammy said, crouching by a plant. That's how they grow, Amy smirked. So you're a plant whisperer now? Tammy nodded solemnly. Yep, I told this one yesterday it was doing great. Look how happy it looks. I told this one yesterday it was doing great. Look how happy it looks. Amy rolled her eyes, laughing. Tammy, that's a weed. They both cracked up until they couldn't breathe. The simple moments were the ones that mattered now, their laughter echoing through the yard. The boys playing, the feeling of the earth between their hands. Sometimes, Amy would catch herself looking at Tammy, amazed. Her sister moved differently now, lighter, freer. Not just in body, but in spirit. One evening, as they packed up their tools, Amy said, You ever think about doing a book? Telling your story your way? Tammy paused, thinking. Yeah, but not a sad book. I want it to be about finding light after the dark, Amy smiled. Then you'd better start writing. Tammy grinned. Maybe I already have. The seasons changed again. The air turned crisp, leaves burning orange and gold. On Thanksgiving, the whole family gathered. Chris, Amanda, Misty, the kids. The table was covered in food, laughter filling every space. As everyone sat down, Tammy raised her glass. You know, I used to dread days like this. I used to feel like I didn't belong anywhere. But today, I feel grateful. For every hard moment, every mistake, every person who didn't give up on me. Especially you, Amy. Amy's voice broke. I didn't do much. Tammy shook her head. You did everything. The room fell quiet. For a moment, there were no jokes, no noise, just love. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Amy stood on the porch alone. The air was cool, the stars bright above. Tammy stepped out beside her, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. Thought you might need this, she said. Amy smiled, taking it. You read my mind. They stood there side by side, watching their breath curl into the night air. You think it'll always be like this? Amy asked quietly. Tammy shrugged. Life changes. It always does. But I think as long as we stick together, we'll be okay. Amy nodded, resting her head on Tammy's shoulder. We've been through hell and back, Tammy smiled softly. And now, we're home. For a long moment, they just stood there in silence. The crickets chirped, the wind rustled the trees, and somewhere inside, a child's laughter echoed faintly, a reminder of everything they had fought for. It wasn't fame that saved them. It wasn't the show. It was love. Uncomplicated, imperfect, real love. As the night deepened, the sisters turned off the porch light and went inside. The world outside kept moving, but for them, time slowed. They had survived the storm, and now they were finally free to live the life they dreamed of. Simple, peaceful, honest. And though the cameras were gone, the story wasn't over. It had just begun.